Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Let's Do It Afraid podcast. Today, we have a special guest. She is currently a digital program manager at Salesforce with more than 15 years of experience. She's a university educator, a content creator, a keynote speaker, a mental health advocate, Miss Southern California 2023, and she's also a #1 best-selling author. So everyone, please welcome Nancy Luong.
Yay, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. This is so exciting, especially with our history. So I'm loving everything you're doing and having a platform for such amazing voices. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, we do go way back. We went to elementary school together, middle school, high school, although you were, I believe, a grade below me, I think, right?
Yeah, I
In
graduated in
undergrad.
2005 from high school. So
Yeah, exactly. And I was 2004. So I knew you were at least a year younger. And I will say that when I run into people that I went to high school with, sometimes it can be really awkward because I never know if they're going to like remember me. And so I always feel awkward. Like I don't know if I want to say hi, or sometimes they'll make eye contact with me and then they'll turn around. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying not to think like, oh, they just don't want to say hi. I'm like, maybe they really just don't remember who I am, and that's fine. But
yeah.
with you, I will say that I've never had that anxiety. I just think that you're one of the few people that I went to school with who is the same person. Like you're so nice and humble and down to earth, and you're really funny, and you have such a great sense of humor. And that's exactly how you were in high school with me. And so I know that if I were to see you in person, you'd just like come up to me and give me a big hug and be the same Nancy that you've always been. So that's why I'm just so thankful that you're here, because you don't make me feel that anxiety about somebody that I went to high school with.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. I think it's like, coming from Santa Rosa and having humble beginnings, like that's something I'll never forget. So like I always remember where I come from. And I think like I'm so grateful, like in my you have talked about this stuff, growing up a little rough,
Yeah.
and it's like, but I always remember that. Like that's why I'm so like ingrained in my history, where I come from, because I never want to lose that. And living in Southern California, I've seen so many people lose themselves a little bit, which is understandable. But
Mhm.
like, I never wanted that for myself. I wanted to be like, don't you forget you came from the 707. So
Yeah.
don't you forget, girlfriend. Okay. So yeah.
Yes, and you do, you talk about that a lot, about where you come from and how proud you are of where you came from. And, growing up in the south side of like Santa Rosa has its own stigma. So I feel like a lot of people try to like really distance themselves from that as much as possible. But I really embrace, I mean, you've said it like on my handle, I literally have 707 because I am proud of where I came from. And I don't forget where I came from. I'm not ashamed of where I came from. It's made me who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my phone number is still 707. I'm proud when people ask me where it's at. I'm like, oh, I'll tell you where it's at. So, yeah, because it's like, I would never change anything about my childhood and upbringing because it's made me who I am today. And like, you can't buy that. Like, I can't teach someone like that grit, like that, being an immigrant daughter, like it cannot be taught in that same exact way. And because of that, I have so much gratitude, of like how far I've come and like where I came from.
Yes. Before we get started, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself in your own words?
Yeah, so thank you for the introductions. I'm a multifaceted, multi-layered woman, I would say. Like in my day job, I work in tech. I work for a company called Salesforce, and I have a marketing and digital program management background. So that's what I do now, which is I'm a digital program manager at Salesforce. But I do a lot of side things that I love, that I'm passionate about. One being, what we talked about, really being immersed into culture, my upbringing. And I think a huge reason is, being like a first gen daughter,
Mhm.
coming to when my parents came in America, they just wanted us to simulate, like me and my sisters, like, luckily though, I lived in a predominantly diverse Latino area in Santa Rosa on Sebastopol Road. So a lot of my classmates spoke Spanish. It was very diverse, but they were just like, just fit in and don't rock the boat and like just kind of stay under the radar. And like innately, like my personality is not like that, but I kind of grew up in that way because I'm like, you're listening to your parents and doing all that. So I just like, was chill, but I still had bursts of me that would like want to come out. And so because of that, I think culture and where you come from is so important, which is how I wrote my book, How We Got Here. It's a guided journal with 50 questions people can ask their parents or loved ones about their upbringing, about their parents' upbringing, or whoever raised them, and learn about their history and learn about how they came to America. Because I really geared this guided journal for immigrants and immigrant kids. Because it's like for me, when I learned where my parents came from, like as in how they grew up, how they were raised, I'm like, oh damn, like this is hard hitting, and now I know why I am the way I am. Like, oh my gosh, just much deeper than I thought. And then also learning about their journey. Like I often think about how when they were 22, they came on a boat from, Vietnam to a refugee camp and lived there for 2 years. I was 22 partying at Cal State Long Beach, taking shots. So like I want to always remember like, hey, where did we come from and how far we've gone? So, another thing I do is I'm an author and I recently wrote a book called We're All Weirdos. And that is just about how so many people feel like misfits and about how to break that stigma and how to be yourself and how to embrace who you are and celebrate that. So I'm an author as well. I do a lot of university work at Cal State Long Beach, which is where I went to school. With guest speaking, mentorship. And then, I'm just an advocate for really being yourself. Mental health, I think, is so important, especially for marginalized groups like Asian Americans have one of the worst stats for being ingrained into mental health because of all the stigmas. So, yeah, I just do a bunch of things on the side that I'm truly interested in, and it's helped me. And I hope to help others in any way that it resonates with others.
Yeah, thank you. And we will definitely talk a little bit more about your books later on in the episode. No, you do a lot. And that's one of the things that I am just in awe of you because you are so young and you've done so much. You've seemed like you've lived this like really rich life. And I love seeing that. I feel like I live vicariously through other people. So whenever I see your pictures and your videos and things that you share on your Instagram page, I'm just like, ah, so cool.
Thank you. And thank you for saying we are still young because we are
Yeah.
still young. I want to say that because my late 20s and early 30s, I was starting to feel really old, like, oh, I'm so old and da, da, da. And like once I started like my spiritual journey and just like really knowing who I am, I'm like, age is a number, like how you feel and the energy is, what it is. And so I still feel really young. And I think like I had to grow up kind of quickly with my parents, and so I felt like I kind of was like an adult as a kid. And then when I was an adult, I really wanted to be an adult. Like I want to do all these things. And now I'm like, you know what? I think it's so good to want to be playful and silly and have fun and have like childlike energy and like look at things with like a lens that is so beautiful. Like it's like your first time seeing something because that's what keeps you young. It's like that fascination of like, wow, this is so cool. So I try to live my life in that way. And so, yeah, no, I have done a lot, but I think it's like having that gratitude and just like staying grounded is so important.
Yeah, for sure. One of the first questions that we like to ask all of our guests is, what is a fear that you're currently struggling with today?
Yeah, so one of my fears that I have is that I sometimes think, am I making enough impact? And so, I don't have a fear of death, but I have a fear of not living to my fullest potential. And so, like, while I'm here on this earth, I want to live as fully as I can. And I tend to put some pressure on myself, and I have to take a step back to be like, you're doing enough. And it's not about being enough or doing, but it's more like, is this like my fullest capacity that I can do? And then I have to remind myself, like, hold up. I usually don't even tell people this because most people, like what you said, it's like you do so much. Most people will be like, girl, you're fucking crazy. So like that's yeah, shit to think about. But I just feel like that I can't explain it unless you're in the same realm as me. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, understand. I think I have a lot of energy, so that's why. So, like, most people will be like, you are doing enough. And I know I'm doing enough. And again, it's not about the doing, but like, am I living to my fullest potential? I guess is my fear sometimes that I have. But I have to tell myself, you're doing your best, you deserve to rest. And if you make impact on one person, that's more than enough. Like, it's not about numbers and it's not about scale, but sometimes I'm like, should I be doing more to like help society? And then I have to tell myself, you're doing like great. You're doing great, sweetie. Like,
Yes,
take a step back. So that's one of my fears.
you are doing great.
Thank you.
No, I totally get that. I feel like sometimes I have that fear as well. And in one of our episodes a while back, we met with Hillary Richards, and she said something to us that was that she was living for her resume, and she realized like I need to start living for like my eulogy, like not my resume, right? Like how do I want to be remembered? What do I want to have on, like, people remember about me, that I was kind, that I was helpful, that I helped them in a difficult time. And that really stuck with me too, because sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough or I'm not making an impact, but then I kind of have to tell myself the same thing. Like, no, I am. Like, I'm a good mom and I want to be remembered as a good mom. And I love my husband so much. I want to be remembered as a good wife. And I'm a good daughter. I'm a good sister. Like, I want people to remember that about me.
Yeah. And I also love that you're doing this podcast, Myra. Like when I saw this, I was like, this is amazing to me because first off, I think being a mom is the hardest job in the world. Like I think it is. I'm not a mom, but I have one and I'm pretty sure I drive her ass crazy. And so
Yeah.
can you too. So you doing this right now is so admirable and inspirational to me because it's outside the box, it really takes a lot to turn a thought into a reality. And the fact that you're doing that and continuing to do that is so amazing to me. And it's so creative too, which I love.
Thank you. No, and a lot of it I owe it to my co-host. She's amazing, Yvette, because without her, this podcast would not be an option. Like, I'm so bad with tech stuff or the behind the scenes stuff, editing, recording. I mean, I've messed up recordings like while we were recording. And she's amazing. And so without her, like, I would not be able to do this. So I do want to give credit where credit is due because Yvette does so much for this podcast and she's amazing.
I
You
love
are,
that.
I think we're a good team. Like for me, the structure and everything, like I flow with chaos just because I'm always given things and hurdles and burdens and, everything. And I'm just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to push through. But Myra, on the other hand, is very organized. She has her schedule. So she keeps us on par with like schedule and everything that has to do with agendas and things like that. But for the back end tech stuff, I think it's really, I can talk. It's very natural to me because I do so much with my business and things online. So I think we're a great team. So thank you for shouting me out, Myra. I really appreciate it. But
Yeah.
yes, I love this for us. I think we've struggled a lot with mental health too, and this is like my therapy when I don't get my therapy sometimes. So I'm like, as long as I feel like I'm understood or I feel heard, it gives me a place to feel like I can push through things. So thank you for telling us that this is making a difference. And like you said, as long as it reaches somebody or it makes a difference for somebody, that's all that matters to me, honestly. Like I tell Myra all the time, like numbers aren't anything as long as people know that we have a safe space for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you, Nancy, moved to Southern California when you were really young to go to school.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that that was so scary. When I was younger, I dreamt about going away to college. I wanted to be closer to the beach. I thought about San Diego or Santa Barbara or Santa Cruz. I still wanted to be in California. I'm a California girl through and through, so I knew I wanted to stay in California. But the fear of the unknown and being far away from my family and everything that I had ever known was so scary and so overwhelming that I decided I can't do it. I'm not going to go away to college. And I just went to a college, a 4-year college that was in the next town over to where we live. And now with my daughter, she is a junior in high school and she's at that age where she's like, oh, mom, I want to go away to college. We're going to visit a college in a few weeks that she wants to go to in another state. And I'm really trying to encourage her and not because I want her to be far away. I mean, as a mom, of course, I want to keep her close, but I just want her to know that possibilities are endless and that she can go out into this world and I'll still be here when she needs me, right? So it's this balance with my daughter. So I'm curious, what advice could you give to a young girl or a young boy who is thinking about going away to college? How did you not let fear stop you from doing what you felt that you wanted to do, which was go away?
Yeah, for me, it was a little different. I was ready to get out of the Bay Area mostly because my parents were so strict. I was like, I want to get away from this place and I want to go as far as possible down south as I can, like in Southern California. And I still love being by the beach. Like something about being by the water. I'm also a Pisces, I don't know, but like I love being by the water and it's just like my zen. One piece of advice I would say is that whenever you want to do something uncomfortable and scary, just know that's normal. I think sometimes we sometimes take uncomfortability, like, okay, maybe that's a sign of no. And
Mhm.
so really listen to your intuition. If it feels uncomfortable, but you're getting that like yearning in your gut, like, I can do this, I want to do this, even if you have some doubt, talk to someone that can mentor you to do that. And it's normal to feel that uncomfortability because that's growth. So if you feel uncomfortable in a different way where you're just like, this is not right, there's something wrong, that's like another gut instinct. But you'll be able to tell the difference between like, this is uncomfortable. I feel like it's almost like being a cocoon and you're like, this is uncomfortable. I want to go to the next step. Like that is normal and that's growth. So I would say in order to grow in any way, like, and you read my bio, like all those things I never thought I could do, but it was uncomfortable for me. But I just talking to mentors and knowing that was like something I wanted to do, I broke out of that. And so it's so important to know you're supported. It is going to be life changing to meet new people, to have new experiences, and good for you to feel that uncomfortability.
Yeah, and I find people like you fascinating in the sense that somebody who can look fear in the face and be like, F you, right? Like I'm still gonna do it. Yeah, I feel scared, I feel anxious, but what's going to be on the other side is greater than staying stuck here, right? And you kind of like know that intuitively and you just like go for it. So people like you really, really fascinate me because I feel like fear has held me back in my life in so many ways. And that's why I wanted to start this podcast to talk to people just like you, because I'm like, if these people I find fascinating, like these are the kind of people I want to talk to more and more, because in hopes of talking about it more, then, it will help us to not be so afraid and so stuck. And I do think that you going away, I mean, I don't know, but I think that my perception of it is it's really helped you to be really fearless and independent. I see you like travel by yourself, you go on plane, like you're not afraid, like you go to different countries by yourself and you'll just like meet these people and then they become your friends. And I always wanted to do that. So I just think it's amazing. Like how has that? How do you think it's helped you, that experience of moving away?
Yeah, and by the way, you are doing so well. Like you said, you started this podcast and you're breaking out of your shell. And one thing I wanted to say about the last question is like you inspire your daughter, Myra. So you being a support system to your daughter will encourage her to do what's meant for her. And it was people that mentored me or I asked, or because I had a lot of fear. I am fearless at times, but I have a lot of fear because I never like saw people that look like me doing things. So it's like almost like that's why I think representation matters, by the way, because it's like if you don't see people doing certain things, they're like, how can you see yourself? So, having a great support system, which you are to your daughter because you're a wonderful mom, is going to help encourage, inspire her to propel to whatever she wants to do. But to answer your question, how has that helped me? I mean, I think moving away has helped me so much. And especially growing, I've always been like my own vibe, like compared to my sisters. So to give you context, both I have two older sisters. They're both married. They both have kids. They're all teenagers, and they live in the same block in San Jose. And my parents live with my sister, so they all live like in one block. And here I am being like, I'm going to Long Beach, and I'm going to do my own thing. And that has helped me so much because for me, even though I'm close to my family, I've only learned in my 30s that healthy boundaries are important. So I think I kind of thought that subconsciously back then of like I need to grow and not be around so many like so many people that are in my ear. But it's helped me grow to be more independent, I would say. And I think that's like one of the biggest, greatest strength someone can have is their independence of feeling like I can do this on my own. And I'm the type, as you said, I love friends, connections, and I think that's one of the most important things in life. But having this sense of independence, like I'm okay, I got this, like that is so important. And that's made me so independent to move away to say, hey, I can do this. I can, have my own life here. I have a whole life in Southern California with a community and friends here. And so it's helped me grow as a person, like individually.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Like I said, I am so fascinated by you and your story and how brave you are. And thank you for saying that about my daughter. But I really hope and I pray that she becomes somebody like you. I want her to be so fearless and so independent and so brave. I got married at a really young age and I wanted to get out of my house so bad. I mean, my mom was very strict on me and I felt just, I don't know, like I loved my being with my family, but I felt very stuck there. And I always, I don't know, like I believed that marriage was going to be kind of a way to escape from, but
Yeah.
I went from like asking my mom for permission to asking my husband for permission. And so it was like ended up being like the same thing, right? Yeah, and not like I don't regret getting married, but I'm just saying I wish that I would have taken the time to really get to know myself
Mhm.
and know that I can make it on my own because even now as a 38-year-old woman, I'm always questioning like, can I make it on my own? You know, if something were to happen to my husband, God forbid, knock on wood, would I be okay? Would my kids be okay? And I remember I used to have this friend and she was older and she would always tell me how important it is for young women to have a sense of independence because you don't know what can happen and you do want to know that you can do it on your own. And so I really try to encourage my daughter to like live on her own, go away to college, and really just know that she can do anything she puts her mind to. So you're such an inspiration,
Well,
really.
thank you. And it's so funny you say that because it's like, you know how they always say like the grass is greener on the other side? Like I
Mhm.
look at you and I'm like, wow, that's so amazing. You still love your husband that you're with after, at least 18 years since your
Yeah,
daughter's 18, I'm guessing the math.
20 plus years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
20 plus years. And you have a daughter who's about to go to college and like all these amazing things in your life. And I will say, like, it's never too late, Myra. It's
Yeah.
never too late. Like I always tell myself, God willing, as I knock on wood, I have 60 more years to live. I'm
Yeah.
32, and I'm like, you know what? So every day I'm like, okay, try to live your day like, it's life is short, but then at the end of the day, I'm like, don't worry, you still got 60 more years to live. So like you can finish that tomorrow or start that tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that's how I try to look at life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. And I know Yvette had some questions for you about Miss Southern California. She wanted to know a little bit more about
Yeah.
your experience with that.
Yes. So I wanted to know what encouraged you to go that route and how your experience was to be a really big role model for everybody around you in that area, knowing that you're from up here, but I'm sure you inspired everyone across the state.
Okay, this is a funny story. So I don't know anything about pageants, like nothing. Like I have never seen a pageant. I've watched Miss Congeniality. Like I'm not like I'm in sweats 24/7. After this call, I'm going to put on a sweater and call it a day. So but I saw the city of Long Beach needed some women, like young women, to participate in it's a nonprofit that's ran in Long Beach. So it's more like community oriented. So they're like, hey, we need young women to participate in this pageant in Long Beach. And if you win, you'll get to volunteer a lot and do all these things. So that was like, oh, okay, that sounded great to me. But I had never seen a pageant before. And I was like, I don't know if I could do this. But I think I was 36 at the time. I'm 38 now, so 2 years ago. And I was thinking, are you too old to be in a pageant? But then I was like, F that. You know what? I'm going to try something like outside the box. And maybe because I really love connecting with women. I think women are amazing. We rule the world. Like I connect so well with women. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll just meet some cool women there and like, become friends with them and see what's up. And plus I was curious. I was like, I don't even know what a pageant entails. So, you know. So again, going to being curious and open. So I signed up for the pageant the day of. So like the day of the pageant was at 2. I signed up at 11 a.m. Brought out my Forever 21 dresses from like 2010, like how long ago. And then I was like, so I went there and I had to answer questions, go on stage, answer questions, like all these things. And I ended up winning. And, I think a huge reason too I wanted to participate was going back to like, I never get to see Asian women in a lot of the spaces I'm in. Like, I rarely see Asian women, especially in their mid 30s, doing things. I see a few, and like those people inspire me. Like, I love like Jeannie Mai, so like, I was just like, okay, I want to try this. I want to try this out. And so I ended up winning. And, the biggest part about it is not only did I get to give back a lot, but I remember one Christmas parade we did. I saw all these little Asian girls and they were like looking at me like, wow, that's so cool. And I want young Asian women to know like we're beautiful, maybe we didn't see each other, see women that look like us in marketing and advertisement and billboards, but we're beautiful just the way we are. I'm not the perfect size zero like Asian woman that like every Asian parent wants you to be. But like, you know what? I just am who I am. And so I want to have that representation of like whoever you are, you're beautiful. You truly are, and I think that's something I've struggled with. So I want to do that for myself, but then for others as well.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that because I have an Asian niece myself. And so same, I like a lot of your story resonates with what she's gone through of what you shared. And I was like, yeah, that's so true. Like I want my niece to feel like she's welcome and she's mixed. So she's half Mexican and half Asian. So she's a beautiful mix and she has curly hair too. Like when she was a baby, she had curly hair. And I'm like, you don't really see Asians with curly hair either. Like, but she's
No.
so beautiful. And I tell her that all the time. Like, don't you ever think that you're any different. You can do whatever you set your mind to. And you're always going to be loved on both sides and with everybody. Like, we just have such a beautiful mix when we come together and it's great. Like the food is so good on both sides too. So
Yes. Yes, I'm Vietnamese too, and I love that. And I think I think our generation especially is really breaking those generational patterns of being supportive and like loving. Like for me, like my parents were such in survival mode. They didn't even have time to like really check in and talk to me, which is totally
yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But like they weren't like, hey, so now they are, now that they're retired and they're like they feel bad. They're like now looking back. And I'm like, that's okay, because they didn't have time, but we are doing that as an aunt, as a mom, as I'm an aunt too, let's go, whoever, like we're doing that for the next generation. I think that's really important.
Yes, I
I agree.
agree.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, like you said, our parents, because they were immigrants, were in such survival mode that it's just like they were just trying to put food on the table. They didn't have the time or the resources, and nobody ever, it wasn't discussed the way it is discussed now. But being a first generation daughter is really important to you. It is something that you're very proud of. It's something I'm very proud of as well. How has being a first generation Asian woman shaped who you are?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think growing up, I just watched my parents be so resilient. I would say that. Like they did anything to put food on the table, like we were talking about, or to make money so that one day I could go to college. And they never complained. And I would love to hear from you. Like an event, like, did your parents, I mean, I just saw them grind and they were just let's go, and I saw them fail so many times. I say that in quotations, but then they just picked themselves up and then just kept going. And so I think that is one thing that has stuck with me of like my parents did that and they didn't even speak English. They like had no money when they came. So that's like one thing. A second thing is, I really had to become like a little adult as a kid because I had to take care of myself. Like my parents were always working. So I think like that made me kind of grow up at a young age. And I think that's a good thing. But also, I think it kind of like my childhood wasn't normal, I would say. Like something Myra and I were talking about is like every weekend I went to the flea market. I sold stuff with my parents from like the age of 5 until basically I went to college, helping my parents at the flea market every weekend sell things. So I never had a weekend where I could hang out with friends or do things because I was just so busy working with them. So that gave me this sense of gratitude of like how far I've come. Like every weekend I have now, like from that day, even though it was, 20 years ago, I'm so grateful for every weekend I have because I'm like, oh my God, I did not like waking up at 7 in the morning, be at the flea market all day till 4 p.m., coming home tired. So now every weekend I'm like, it is a luxury and privilege to have a free weekend. That's how I feel every weekend. So I would say things like that, because I was helping my parents so much. And then also I had to be resilient myself. Like I felt so embarrassed when I would see people at the flea market. Like I was mortified. Like when I would see like it got worse when I was a teenager because I was like, oh my gosh, that's the boy I like, or this is so awkward. But then I had to learn like I couldn't be embarrassed because I didn't want to embarrass my parents. Of like I didn't want them to feel that way. So
Mhm.
I learned to be like resilient and humble too, and just being like, this is just, your part in life right now. And one day I hope you are successful where you can have weekends off. So it's shaped me in so many ways like that.
I think Yvette and I probably have even very similar experiences. Both of our parents, Yvette's parents and my parents came from Mexico. So it's the same thing, right? They're just working all the time, trying to put food on the table. My mom built herself from the ground up. My husband is an immigrant as well. He came to the country when he was 18, and
Oh.
I am still in awe of him. Nobody works harder, in my opinion. Nobody works harder than that man. Like he works from sunup to sundown, Monday through Saturday. Like it's just like he just works, 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 and his love language is like to provide and provide and provide. So I feel like we kind of balance each other out because he's very like old school and he like provide and I just want the best for my family. I have to give my family the best. And then I'm more of like, okay, how are you feeling today? And it's like I'm trying to feel like I fill their emotional needs and he's fulfilling their, material needs. So yeah, I get it.
Yes, I agree. My husband's very much similar to yours. He likes to work a lot. When he's not working on his landscaping stuff, he's working here in the house, but he's always busy. He's never just sitting there. And I'm like, I think that also affects me because I'm like, am I supposed to be doing something too? Like, if I'm just sitting there, I feel like I'm doing something bad. And it's like, no, I have to rest myself too. And that's something I tell him too. Like, there's days you have to take some rest because then our body will like charge us later, and that's not gonna be fun. But yes, I feel like I really resonate. And I feel like a lot of the cultural things that we experience are very similar. I find the same similarities with my sister-in-law. So I'm like, it's very awesome to see.
Yeah. And I think that also takes us back to we're more alike than we are different, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
something that I do try to remember because I know that especially now I feel like everything's just like trying to divide us, but in reality, if you just really sit down and talk to people, you will realize that you are more alike than you are different. And even though our parents don't necessarily come from the same countries or anything like that, but we can find a lot of similarities in your story and my story, especially as a first generation um, daughter in this country. And also, I do know, and I can see how proud and your parents are and your sisters are. I mean, they're always promoting your books. One of your sisters works at a school. Is she a librarian?
Mhm. Yeah, she's a
Yeah, and she
librarian.
yeah, and she put like the book on display, and I thought that was so cute. What has their support meant to you?
It's meant so much to me, and that's why a huge part of my life is mentoring because both my sisters are older than me. So the middle sister is 7 years older than me, and then my older sister is 10 years older than me. So they kind of like went through it first, like they were the guinea pigs of the immigrant family, Like my sister had to learn how to go to college by herself. Like she had no idea, no one could help her. She was like doing it herself in 1995, and then she kind of helped my other sister, and then when it came down to me, they were able to help me because they already figured out like, okay, this is the things to do and not to do. And so it's meant so much to me to have their support. And I think that's why it's so important to have a support system. And even if it's not your family, which I'm so fortunate to have, it can be outside people, someone you admire, even people you don't maybe know necessarily, but you can like watch videos on YouTube or people that just inspire you as young adults. And it's meant so much to me, which is why I give back so much of my time to the university and to college students because I'm like, I know a lot of people don't have someone like that, and especially a sibling. And a lot of siblings don't even get along. So, the fact that I feel so privileged that I was able to get that support, I now give that back in the ways that I can because I'm just so grateful.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And you do have a really supportive family and it shows. And even you, like towards your family, I mean, you'll talk about your brothers-in-laws and how much you love them and your relationship with them and your nieces and your nephews. So it is a beautiful thing to see because I do think that a lot, like you said, a lot of siblings, they don't even talk to each other anymore. So I do love seeing when families are so close, and it makes me wish that mine was closer, like me and my siblings were closer, but I try to focus on like, okay, my kids are going to be close, right? Like they're going to bond.
Definitely. Yeah.
So you did mention your first book, How We Got Here, which is a number one best-selling book. You talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the interview. Did you know when you were doing it? I mean, did you think that it would be so successful?
No.
Yeah.
So, it was the first time I did something, I would say for myself. And it was the first time I did something creatively. And I don't know if you feel like this matter with your podcast, but I was like, this is for me. Like, this is the first
Yeah.
time in my life I did something for me. Like, I never considered myself a creative person, but now that I think about it, I've always been. I think I just always kind of suppressed that. I'm being like logical and Asian, like going for, things that made sense, like financially. And I was like, this is the first time where I really feel aligned with something I love and passionate about. And if it helps one person, like I kind of wrote it like for my friends. Like I kept telling myself because what happened was when I was writing it out, I was thinking it started getting in my head, like, oh no, like are these the right things to say? And then I went back to my first intention, my main intention, which is, to connect families. And I thought, well, you know what? If this helps one person, like one of your friends, and that's more than enough. So I had to keep telling myself that to finish the book because I started getting in my head. You're like, now I'm starting to freak out. So I was like, no, finish this and just remember. But I didn't think that at all. And one thing I almost didn't finish it because I was thinking like, who am I to be a writer? Like I never went to school to write, and I don't know if this is even good. So I didn't think this, but I kept telling myself, this is like the one thing that you actually love. And because I feel like everything I've done has been for myself per se, but it was influence, if that makes sense. Like this is like the
Yeah.
first time I felt like creative. Like this is
Yeah.
my little baby that I'm creating. No one has a say in this. I'm doing this for me. And so I never imagined it to be that successful.
Yeah, that is exactly what this podcast feels like to me. So I get it. So the cool thing about this book, and I tell this to Yvette all the time because she still has like grandparents that are living, how important it is to really know their stories. And I really regret not doing something like having your book when my grandmother was alive and be able to like do this book with her. So I love the book and I loved the idea and the concept. And you know what? Some of my favorite authors, honestly, are people like you who never even considered writing. They had, another job that they did and writing was just something that spoke to them, or they maybe just started doing it as a pastime or just something for fun. And then they ended up writing a book and thinking nobody's going to pick it up. And then it becomes a bestseller. So honestly, some of my favorite authors are people just like you who just had an idea one day and they're like, let's go for it.
Yeah, no, it's and that's like one thing I want to say. It's like if you think you can't do it just because you don't have like the credentials, you can. Like when I was having that breakdown, like, oh my gosh, who am I to think I could do this? My friend was like, dude, it's okay. Like anyone, like anyone can write something. As in, you don't need a piece of paper to tell you that you're qualified. And I think a lot of people we put ourselves in a box like okay we have to have a certain thing criteria to be in this and it's like yes sometimes you do but other times you can do whatever you feel like doing and it's like all these things were created to give you permission to do what you want to do but in reality you can truly do especially being creative what you want to do and I definitely think it would be fun though to do this book with your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I have the book. I'm gonna
Yeah.
or even like my parent like my mom,
Yes.
yes, with my parents. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just like was one of those things I was like, oh, I wish I would have had this book, when my grandmother was alive. And it would have been really nice to hear all of her stories. Your second book that you have is We Are All Weirdos, and I have mine right here. I love, love, love this book. I think you told us a little bit about it, but can you tell us a little bit more about We Are All Weirdos? And I believe it's also number one, currently a number one best-selling book.
Yeah, it was the number one new release.
Yeah.
And yeah, this book I wrote because when I was just going through a lot, I like to always reflect, okay, why do you feel this way? And like a theme that I kept coming up whenever I would feel not so good is you feel like this because you feel like a weirdo. So I realized, oh my gosh, I feel like a weirdo. I feel so different and at so many times. And then when I started telling students this, like when I would speak to them in classes, they would say, I feel like a weirdo too. And then I realized we all kind of feel like a weirdo at times, you know? And so We're All Weirdos is about how we all feel different, how we can all feel like misfits, but ultimately everything that we think is odd or weird or different about us is our superpower. So if you think about like everything that I like, I'm sure Myra, when you look at your daughter and there's quirks about her, you're like, those are such beautiful parts of her, that are so quirky or odd. But we sometimes see it as like, can we like normalize this? How like almost running away from that? So the book is about really embracing who you are, but embracing those quirks and weird parts of us because those are our gifts. Like those parts are what sets us apart from others, and that's what makes us beautiful. But it's sometimes hard to see from yourself, but other people can see it, and it's about really knowing to giving yourself permission to be who you are. So now, like when I feel like, oh, I effed up on that or that's weird, I'm like, good, good, that's life. Whereas before I used to like always beat myself up for it. I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. I just want to embrace that. Whatever, moving on, I'm different and really celebrating that too.
Yeah, and what a quote that you have in the book that I really, really liked, and I want to read it to our listeners. You say, "Don't make yourself small for everyone. Be the awkward, funny, intelligent, beautiful little weirdo that you are. Don't hold back, weird it out. So I really, really like that. And you're right. I agree. I think that we sometimes, like you said, even in my kids, that there's something about them that people might think is weird, but to me it is so beautiful and it is what sets them apart. My son, I have a son who's almost 9 and he just feels a lot, right? So he cries about things that for us might seem small, and my daughter will be like, stop crying, and I'm like, leave him alone. Like he feels a lot, and that's okay. And he pays attention to details. He remembers these little things that other people wouldn't remember. He had this crush on a girl in his class, and for Valentine's Day he wanted to buy her a panda because he remembered that she likes pandas, and she has a little panda sticker on her backpack. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you're amazing. Like you paid attention to one little thing that she said and you went with it. And so we did. We got her like this little panda and she was so excited. But yeah, so other things that people might be like, oh, he's weird. Like I just try to really praise them for.
Thank you so much for sharing that because that's one thing I write in the book that I always felt so weird for being overly sensitive and caring and crying because like my family, like my sisters would be like, stop crying, like, oh my gosh, like because they're really like tough love, but that's their own thing. So they'd be like, stop crying. And now they're like used to it and they're like embrace it. But I always just thought I was so weird for that. I'm like, why do I feel so deeply? And I did not like it. I wish I could be like more, I used to wish I could be more like my sisters, like, tough and just like unbothered and all these things. But that is one of my superpowers. And that is why I'm able to connect with so many people and be compassionate and empathetic. But I did not feel like that growing up at all, like not even until recently, because I thought like, why do I feel so overwhelmed with feelings? So I really appreciate you sharing that because especially as a male too, I
Mhm.
think like young boys and men are supposed to be tough and, I always think about how men are told not to cry and just how devastating that is to me to hear that is a norm. It's like to hear that men are supposed to force themselves to not have an expressive way to, an outlet to let something out that they feel. That is not healthy. So, I think that there's all these norms that need to be shifted into a reality that is healthy, and that's one of them. And so I think I think that men have another type of pressure, like you're saying, especially with boys. It's like being too
Mhm.
sensitive, you're supposed to be strong and like tough. And it's like that is a superpower feeling. Like that is like what we need more of, I think. Like
Yeah.
men that feel and understand and listen and are detail oriented and remember the little things. So yeah.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I love that about my son, and I always try to really praise him because he just feels a lot, and he is very empathetic, and I love that about him. Like he should be an empathetic, caring. He should care about humans. We need more people that care about humans than people who just don't care. So I
Yeah.
agree. And I also loved that at the end of every chapter of We're All Weirdos, you kind of have this like note reflection page where people can write down their own thoughts and feelings. And to me, that really helped because I felt like it was a space for me to kind of reiterate concepts that stuck with me and also to put the ideas that you were presenting into my own words.
Yeah.
Did you do that intentionally? Did you add that page intentionally for that?
Yeah, I did because I wanted people to reflect of how the chapter resonated with them or even ask themselves like what has made me feel odd. And I think that it's so important to write things out at times, or at least if you're not a writer, have like, a moment to pause and think like, how has this affected me and how can I relate with it? Because oftentimes when we read, we're reading and then we process, but like having an intentional moment where you think, how can this relate to me and what do I want to do about this? Or even just like letting it out, I think is so important to reflect for a quick minute.
Yeah, this book is amazing. I really encourage all of our listeners, even if you, I mean, especially to my book girlies and boys, but if you're not, like, definitely read this book. It's such a good book. Something else that I didn't know until I read this book, you talk about how the word weird actually comes from a word that meant fate. And
Mhm.
you say back in the day, being weird meant you had the power to shape your own destiny. It was about owning your own path. And to me, that was like, in a way, to kind of take back that word weird that other
Hmm.
people put this like negative connotation on and be like, no, like you said, being weird is my superpower. It is what makes me different. It is what makes me unique. And I love that weird part of me, right? So I love your book. I think it's amazing. I think you're amazing. And thank you for writing this book.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for, your kind words. And that's what it is. It's about taking the power back because I think and you being a mom, like you see your kids, right? They're weird when they're like growing up. They're like weird little weirdos, right? Because they're just being themselves, they're just being themselves. And then all of a sudden you see something shift at a certain age where they start caring about other people or they start being like influenced and then they start conforming to what they feel is normal or comfortable because they don't want to be different. And so, I think there's a shift there where it's like, oh, now it's like societal noises or even outside noise that comes in. And so that changes. And so I think being weird and embracing that with what the word originated from is really about being your authentic self. Before all the noise came in and before the societal boxes came in and all these things, and really taking that power back to be like, I want to be myself and I'm going to be myself. And it takes a lot of courage and power to do that, but we can. And that's why I wrote the book, because when we do that, it makes life so much more freeing and enjoyable and fulfilling, and it's like, even if we're not conscious of all the societal norms, there just are. Like we live in that, and that's fine. But like there needs to be some type of balance where we can just really be ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think when they're little, or even like if you go back and think about like when we were little, right?
Mhm.
I think about like little Myra and how much she loved to sing and loved to perform and how she would wear like these bright colors and she
Yeah.
wouldn't care what people thought. She just thought she looked cool. And and then things start happening and there's a shift and they're like you start caring about what people say. But I will say that one thing about getting older that I do really love and appreciate is that you kind of get back to that and you're like, I don't care what people think anymore. I don't
Yes.
care. You're
Yeah.
gonna either love me or you're gonna hate me, and that's fine, and I don't care. Like, and like most of us are just out here trying to do our best. And
Totally.
even like when I started going to the gym, I remember I was so self-conscious about like, oh my gosh, they're gonna like look at me and they're gonna think I'm weird and whatever. But then I was like, no, Myra, like everyone here at the gym, they're not looking at me. They're just trying to get through their workout. They're just trying to
Mhm.
breathe, like they're too
Totally.
focused on themselves to even know that I'm there. So, like who cares? I'm just gonna go and do what I gotta do.
Yeah, no, exactly. One part of my book I wrote, don't make it weird by being weird, Because I think that's being self-conscious, including myself. Like I used to be weird all the time, especially when I would go to nice places. I would be so weird. Like and by weird I mean like awkward because I'm like, I don't belong in these places. But like we can make that odd too. And then that makes the energy that way. And so then we actually end up getting that because we started it first when no one thought that. But now that we're acting a little different, people are like, what the heck? So yeah, I agree with you. It's like like I love that self-awareness that you had, Myra, to be like, you know what? This is just how I feel, and I don't need to feel this way, and I'm not going to feel this way. So then you start to see like no one cares.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Or the people that do care don't matter, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, the people that like do care or have their opinion about it, they can have it. They don't matter.
Yeah.
So
And that's more about themselves than you.
exactly. Yes. The like they say hurt people, right?
Yes.
So if
Yeah.
they're hurting and I tell it to my kids all the time when kids are mean or say mean things, I'm like, they're probably going through something
Totally.
themselves
Yeah.
and they're just lashing out on you. It's more about them than it is about you. But yeah, no, I really, really love this book. I really encourage everyone and anyone to read this book because I learned so many things that I never even knew. And that like word where it used to mean fate, that one just like really stuck out to me. I was like, wow. Like how did we take a word that meant such a beautiful thing and turn it into something that kind of has like a negative connotation
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, you have accomplished so much. We've talked about this. You've done so much in your life and you are so young still. But what are you most proud of? And what would you say to little Nancy today?
I think I'm most proud of the two books I wrote because, that really came out of my soul. Like I don't even know how to explain it. It was just alignment of how I felt, and it was therapeutic for me to write. And it made me so joyful when I could see other people like you yourself like relate because it's something I've struggled with. So it's almost like taking a struggle and turning it into like a piece of art. And I would tell the little me, which I talk to all the time. I actually have a picture of me when I was little and I put it in my mirror because I heard from someone if you do that, you can speak kindly to yourself, like that little girl in you when we're being hard on our adult self. So I would tell her I'm proud of her and that, everything you have gone through, it will be beautiful one day. And I'm really proud of you. And I wouldn't change anything about how you grew up. So
Oh, I
yeah.
love that. I love that you have a little picture of yourself on the mirror. I've never heard that, but I do think it's a really cool idea, and I kind of want to do it.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because we have that inner child in us, and I used to be so hard on myself. So I read somewhere like if you put like a picture of you when you were younger, you can talk to her because that is you. And like, would you talk to her the way that you would talk to yourself as an adult? So that's helped me a lot, like with my negative thoughts that like I wouldn't say this to this little girl. And it's like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that to her, which is you. So
Yeah, exactly. No, we wouldn't say half of the things we say to our adult self if we were talking to like the little
yeah,
version of ourselves,
yeah,
right? Or I
yeah.
even tell my daughter, like, you wouldn't, when she's saying harsh things about herself, I'm like, hey, you wouldn't say that to your friend.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, if your best friend
Yeah.
came up to you today and said, like, I don't feel comfortable in this sweater, like, I don't like the way my arms look, she'd probably tell you, like, what are you talking about? Your arms look great. You know, like
Right.
your friend, you would never talk to your friend like that. So why would you talk to yourself like that? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, to kind of conclude the episode, there are two questions that we like to end all of our interviews with. The first one is, what is the best advice you've ever received? And then, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
Um, I'm gonna start with the worst. So the worst advice, and I want to say the advice is just given them from people's perspective. So I don't even blame people
Mhm.
for giving me these types of advice. But
Yeah.
one is to, and I still get this advice. It's like to stay under the radar and to just be complacent. Like I think that is not a good piece of advice, to be safe because I think in life, whatever age it is, you're going to have a yearning to grow and to speak and use your voice. And I think it's really important to use your voice and to know how valuable you are and not to just like keep peaceful, to be peaceful and,
Yeah.
not to ruffle feathers. So I would say that's not a good piece of advice. And the best piece of advice I have is to be yourself. And I recently just got this even a few years ago where I was like, how should I be when I talk to people or when I'm in these spaces? And when my mentor said, just be yourself. And I was like, no, really, can you that's cute, but like, can you really tell me
Yeah.
what your advice is? Because I really need help with this. And he said, just be yourself. Seriously, I want you to be yourself wherever you are because what we're talking about, that is your superpower. You being yourself and authentic will resonate more than you trying to be any other way. And so, as simple as that sounds, it is so true. If you can just be yourself and be authentic and real, that's what we need right now. We need authenticity. I think with social media and all that. And I know Instagram is a place to curate, the best parts of your life, which is what it's meant for on Instagram, for example. But if you can show authenticity and be real and vulnerable to people you feel safe with, that is going to go so much further because like you were saying before, we're way more connected than we can even imagine. And I think sometimes we feel so separated, but at the end of the day, we're humans and we have so much in common, including our insecurities, our things that we go through. And so I think that's really important.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I really like that. I really like that you said, to just be yourself. I think that when I come on here and at the beginning when we started this podcast, I would like be so critical of like making sure that I'm saying the right things, or like even I would look up different words, like synonyms, right, of different
Yeah,
words. So I'm like, so
yeah,
I'm not repeating the same word over and over
totally.
again. But I felt like those episodes just didn't feel, authentic,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
didn't like them. And so I
Hmm.
was like, every day before I come on here, I really just like try to do some breathing exercises, and I'm like, God, just help me be myself. Like, just help me be myself and really feel comfortable in this episode. And those are the episodes that I end up liking the most when I see myself in them. Rather than the ones that I feel like were just more fabricated. I don't like those. And I don't feel like people like them either because nobody is that perfect or so put together. And nobody, I mean, most people don't speak that eloquently, right?
Yeah,
So
totally. And it gives permission for others to be themselves because you can see a sense of relief when you're like, oh, you're keeping it real. I'm gonna keep it real, you know? Because you spend so much time having a facade, it's tiring. So it's like when you can be yourself, it gives other people permission to be like, let their guards down and be themselves too.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something that you said a while ago when you were saying that when you were younger, you were just like you cried a lot and you were very empathetic. And I do feel like that is one of your superpowers because like I said, you are one of the kindest and nicest people I know. And you have literally been like this since I've known you. So I just love that about you. And you have the ability to literally go, like I said, anywhere in the world and you will make like best friends because people gravitate towards you. And I think that they feel that you're just like such a good person and you really want to be a good friend. And you're a girl's girl, but you're also just a people person. Like you just are really an amazing person. So thank you so much for coming on here. We've really enjoyed having you. I know our listeners are going to learn so much from you. And make sure you guys go check out both of Nancy's books today. They are on Amazon. So you could probably get them anywhere you get books, right? But I got mine on Amazon, so I know.
Yeah. Amazon's the best place to get it. So yeah. Yay. Thank you so much
And
for
where
having me.
can people find you? Sorry, where can people find
Yeah. They can find me. My website is nancyluong.com, Luong, and everything that I have is on there. So that's a good place. Or on Instagram, Nancy Luong, Luong 17. So yeah, you guys find me there.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, like I said, for coming on here. We've really enjoyed you. We hope, and we'd love to hear anyone's comments. And Nancy's always good about reaching. If you reach out to her, she's always really good about answering back. So if anyone has any questions for her, you can go find her on her website or on her Instagram page. And we really want to thank all of you guys for joining us. We hope you guys have an amazing week. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us everywhere. And we will see you all next week.
Yay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.